Welcome to Coffee and History, a conversation with Alabama heritage. We are your hosts. I'm Rebecca Mender,
Susan Reynolds,
and Caroline Gazera McKenzie.
Join us as we sit down with some of the most fascinating figures in the state of Alabama over a hot or cold cup of coffee, and we'll explore the captivating tales of Alabama's stories that educate, inspire, and we hope entertain. We are thrilled to be here with you. We are on the road, and we're actually recording from the historic Scott Yarbrough House, also known as Pebble Hill in Auburn, Alabama. And this home actually serves as the location of the Caroline Marshall Drawn Center for the Arts and Humanities. And we want to thank Mark Wilson and Maven Beard for allowing us to visit for a few days and interview some of the great folks from this part of the state. Susan, I think you actually have a very cool Did You Know segment for this morning that kind of relates to today's guest.
I sure do. So, listeners, before introducing our guest, we like to call this our Did You Know segment, where we'll share a fun and surprising fact about the state of Alabama, something that might be new information for you or even for us, usually is. Yes. Did you know that the Olin Mills Studios was established in Tuscaloosa in 1932?
Oh. No.
Yeah, I think we all have some Olin Mills photos somewhere in our family collection. And so, they have them all over the place, especially in Tuscaloosa. And it was named after its president. The company was sold to a major competitor in 2011. And by the time they sold it, they had hundreds of studios across the nation and more than 20 in Alabama, mostly at Kmart's, Belk stores, that kind of thing, with a large and very active church director division as well.
You know, I know that our family, especially with the church directories, almost all of them were from
Olin Mills.
Olin Mills.
Yeah.
And so the thing of it is with Olin Mills is that, you know, it has their little signature in the bottom corner there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is so super cool. And I know that those portraits are really important for families, and, you know, whether it was for the church or just their, you know, documenting their kids and everything.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the things that I know that our guest today has done is that she has also been a portraiture. And it's only a different format because I've asked her to do that for us. And so today we've got a great guest who can maybe talk to us a little bit more about that. What do you know, Caroline, about our guest for today?
So today's guest is Laura Murray, who is a designer, illustrator, author, and maker of things, coloring book lover, and student of all things beautiful. She has a Bachelor's of Fine Arts and is the author and illustrator of the coloring book Amazing Alabama. Please welcome Laura Murray.
Yay, Laura! One of our faves.
Yes, welcome, Laura.
Thank you. I'm so
Hi.
excited to be here.
We're glad to have you.
So Laura, the Amazing Alabama is actually part of a series of coloring books, correct?
Yes, it is.
What's been published? How did you create them? And where did the idea come from?
So I'm going to start with the last question first. I'm a lover of coloring books. I'm a grown woman and I have way too many coloring books. I've always collected them when I go traveling and when we go out of state or out of the country or out of town. And that stems back from when I was a little girl. My dad traveled all week and he would come home on the weekends. And a lot of times he would bring me back a coloring book from where he traveled. Yeah. So it's something that I've just always collected, and I would love to have some of those old ones, but
they get lost to time.
Yeah, they do. But anyway, when I moved to Alabama about 12 years ago, I started looking for a coloring book about Alabama, and I couldn't find one. And I was lamenting to my husband one night about it, and he said, well, I know somebody that can create one. And I thought, oh, yeah, you know what? I could just make one. So I drew out kind of what I wanted, and I started with 10 counties. And my idea was to do a county-by-county journey around the state and focus on well-known and very little-known aspects of each county. And so I created 10 drawings and sent them to a friend of mine, Suzanne LaRosa at New South Books in Montgomery, not to get a book deal, but just to ask her, is this anything? What do I do? How do I reach out to a publisher? And she emailed me back in less than 5 minutes and said, you don't need to worry about that because we want to publish.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's amazing.
That is how it came about.
Yeah, I just want you to know that doesn't normally happen to authors. So usually you get like 75 rejection letters before anybody even thinks about it. So that was how wonderful that was.
It was Providence, and it was wonderful. And after Amazing Alabama came out, I had sort of an open-ended contract to do as many states as I wanted, and got Amazing Georgia and Amazing South Carolina done before their sale to the University of Georgia Press. Right. And I haven't reached out to University of Georgia Press about a fourth one yet, but I'm
now that they're hearing
working
this
on it.
Now that they're hearing this podcast and how popular the series is, they may be influenced.
Well, and I gave both, I call them my nieces, I gave both of them the coloring books. They love them. So I try to give them to everyone. Those are awesome.
Well, I remember one of the times that, Alabama Heritage, we go on field trips all the time. And there was one time we went to Coleman, and it's the restaurant, what is it called, that has the orange?
Allstate.
Allstate.
So good.
And they have the little orange rolls that are so famous.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there waiting for, the food to be brought in and everything. And I have the kids' menu with a coloring, the coloring, what are those coloring sticks called? Crayons.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, it's a little early in the morning to be recording, so I can't.
It's fine.
I can't always do words. And so I'm coloring it, and Susan takes a picture of me, and she posted it on social media, and she's like, yeah, this is what our digital media editor does, is she's coloring. But I've always loved that. I don't care how old I am. And so having adult coloring books to me is just the coolest. And
definitely.
Well, that we've actually had someone reach out asking if we had a State of Alabama just coloring page. So maybe, Laura, we might need to work with you to have that available.
I would love that. I actually have all of the Amazing Alabama pages available for digital download on my website.
That's awesome. What is your website?
My website is www.lauramurraycreative.com.
Nice.
And that's Murray, Murray.
Yes. And I would love to create one specially for y'all, though.
Yeah,
that would be so much
really
fun.
Cool.
I think so.
Maybe the three of y'all sitting behind the table.
Yeah.
Oh, here we are podcasting.
But I think what's so great about those coloring books is that you're teaching history through them. And I know that it's really helpful for students and young children with the coloring books, but have you also found it true for adults who have gotten a hold of the coloring books, or just any other generation that might like them?
I have. One of the best stories that I have heard while creating and selling these books was a woman who bought this for her mother, who was early onset dementia, and she purchased it for her she lives in a nursing home, and she absolutely loved the book and would color and actually recognized some of the places from the county that she lived in.
That's amazing.
So yes, coloring is not just for kids. No. If you can still hold a pen or pencil and a crayon, then coloring is still for you.
Interactive history.
It is.
Yes, I love that.
And it's not just history, it's traveling.
Yes. And
one of the things I love to do is to travel back roads. And I love to take pictures of old buildings and cityscapes and houses. And this is a way to kind of marry that love of history and love of travel. There are some things in the book that you would not have any idea because they're not really necessarily historical, but they're really cool.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's something that people from the local community would recognize. And that's one of the things that, I appreciated about what you did with Amazing Alabama is, reaching out to different communities and asking them, what would you consider to be some of the most iconic things? And it would be iconic for us in our county, not necessarily from somebody 7 counties away, but it gives them that opportunity to go, visit and go, oh, I saw this moonwink sign and I don't know what is that. And so they can go to Tuscaloosa County and find out more what the moonwink sign represents. And that's what I really appreciated about you, is doing the research, is that you really did try to delve into, not just what we would assume would be an iconic image for that county, but diving a little deeper and finding things that people from the local community would appreciate being represented. And that's what I really appreciate about the series, because, you know, it really has that home sense to it, you know? So I love that. And it is a great way to teach history, because then people can go and, you know, learn, they can travel and learn more about, you know, what's in their state if they've never been, you know, or even cross the border and go to Georgia. And what was the third one that you had?
The third one is Amazing South Carolina.
South Carolina. There you go.
So of all three of the books, South Carolina has my favorite origin story. South Carolina is where my family's from, and that's where my dad lives currently. And when I told him that I was starting South Carolina, he cleared off the kitchen table and unfolded a South Carolina roadmap. And my dad's big on legal pads, and he brought in a legal pad and a pen, and we sat and went county by county through the roadmap, picking out spots that he thought were important enough to be included in the book.
That is so cool.
That's so sweet.
I love having that familial involvement. That is fantastic, man. Okay, so, you know, as the author of historical books, and then also you had mentioned your husband previously. We'll just go ahead and say that's Steve Murray, who is the director of the Alabama Department of Archives and History. You have some daughters, and I'm wondering, has it been challenging to get them to love history as much as you and your husband do? Because, you know, you mentioned going on these trips and doing a little research for, you know, your books, but are they sitting in the back seat going, oh God, they're pulling over to read one more historic marker? Or are they into it? I mean, what's it like raising kids to appreciate and enjoy history?
I really don't know, because I haven't done that.
So they're sitting in the back going, Mom, please, do we have to stop one more time?
100%. And I'm sorry, Steve, but history is Maggie's least favorite class in school. No, they appreciate it because they know that it's important. And they know that we love it. And they know that we're not dragging them to the Smithsonian because we want them to be bored. They know that we want them to understand their history and the things that are important. We don't go on vacations and just rest. We're not those people.
Right.
Steve and I and Maggie did recently. We went in October down to the beach, and we literally stayed at the beach. But it doesn't matter where we go. We're going to try to find something to learn. And the kids are just used to it at this point.
I think probably when they get older, they'll start to appreciate it more. I mean, because we did a little bit of that when I was young too. And I've mentioned, you know, before that I hated history when I was young too, but that was a lot attributed to the way it was taught in high school. And so I didn't appreciate it as much, but then you learn more. And when you get older, you're like, you know, then they start doing it themselves. When I've noticed my own kids, you know, taking their friends on a tour and saying, hey, did you know such and such happened right here? And they're like, wait, what? You know, they made a movie here about it. And so when they start doing that own interpretation of it and showing their friends around, then you know it really sunk in. You know, they're just going to be cool kids, and you're going to be the boring parents, and then they're going to eventually they'll appreciate it. So
maybe one day.
I can honestly say now that I am a mom, I'm actually excited to take my daughter to learn things like my mom did with me growing up. So I think it's cyclical. So hopefully that works in your favor.
I think it is. And I think, you know, like I said, they're going to drag their feet and be on their cell phones or their, you know, mobile devices and pretend like they're not paying attention. But I think they actually
eventually something will, like, they'll be invested in something they see. And it may not be right away, but somewhere down the road, they're going to say, oh, wow. And that's going to open a gateway to something else. So,
but I mean, heck, it seems like they would be grateful to have parents that are,
oh, sure.
I mean, who better to help you with your history, you know, research paper than somebody who is the director of the state archives, or who better to help you with a poster project than a mom who is creative and artistic. So, I mean, you've got the best of both worlds, you know, as parents. So, you know, I wish I had that growing up. That would have been somebody else to do my science project. Or
I love school projects. And I'm
sure you do as a creative.
When they would come home and say, Mom, I need help. Yes, I'm going to here we go.
It's like, this is Laura getting the A+ in class. It's like, never mind the kid. She can put her name on it, but it's really my project.
It doesn't matter that it's not her handwriting.
Right.
Have you had to do a lot of those where you really do have to, help them through a project?
Mainly layout of things. Maggie, at the high school they went to, they had to create a humongous senior project. And there were like 48 hours of work outside of school that they had to participate in. And they had a big presentation, kind of like a science fair in sixth grade.
Gotcha.
But all the seniors had to pick something that they had never done before. So Maggie decided that her senior project was going to be learning pottery. And she joined a pottery studio and learned how to wheel throw and hand build. She learned about glazing and firing techniques. And that was totally creative of her.
But that's even cool that they have a class where they encourage something like that.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was a liberal arts high school and a very well-rounded education.
Yeah.
She did all of that by herself. She didn't ask for any help and all that because she had to learn all this and do all this by herself. But when it came time for her presentation, she had to have mommy help with her tri-board.
Right.
And so,
that's how it usually goes.
Right. Yeah. So it's not, I didn't really create it for her. What my main help was with composition. So I would lay it out and tell her, this needs to go here, this needs to go here. And very lightly in pencil, I wrote the headline and a few things so that she could go back over it.
Yeah.
And actually the work would be hers.
Yeah.
Because she and I have very different handwriting.
Right.
Maggie writes like an architect. It is very tiny and very perfect. And I do not have tiny, perfect handwriting.
Yours is big and swirly.
It's big and very swirly and creative.
Yes.
Exactly.
So I wanted her to at least not get in trouble for her project looking like somebody else did it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That is really cool. And I'm glad that you're able to guide her through projects like that. It's fun when the kids ask for help. I appreciate that.
So I have to just ask, because we're here at Pebble Hill and we were gifted the Betsy Scott Harper book, The Story of the Auburn's First Family, and you are the illustrator for it. And this is a children's book. Can you tell me a little bit about this project, how it came to be, and just what you loved about it?
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is probably one of the most meaningful and special projects that I've been part of. And I was, first and foremost, incredibly honored to be asked to do this. When Mark Wilson at Pebble Hill approached me about this, they already had the book pretty much done, and they knew what was going to happen with the wording and the way the book flowed. And I was called in to illustrate the book and to design the book and lay it out and make it approachable for children. So Terrence Howard is the protagonist, and he's the storyteller, and he is the keeper of his family's history. And as a child, he remembers driving by Pebble Hill and and hanging out the window and his grandmother saying, "That's our house. Our family built that house. Our family lived there. Don't forget your family lived in that house." So he had it ingrained in him that he was connected to this house somehow. And throughout family genealogical work and looking into his family history, he was able to track his family from Columbia County or Augusta County, Georgia, all the way across to Harris County, Georgia, across the Chattahoochee, and settling here in Auburn. And he did so by checking out census records, plantation slaveholding records, and all this great data, and compiled this story about his family for his family mainly, but also to talk to future generations about how important it is to tell your story.
Absolutely.
And to learn what your family story is so that you can share it for generation to generation. We included illustrations in the book of what we thought his family would have looked like, the family tree, some of his family working in the field, working in the house. And we also included images of census records and marriage certificates. And it's just really,
awesome.
It's a really meaningful, special book. And it kind of really piques your interest in family history. So,
But it's a children's book, correct?
it is. It's a children's book. It was written from the perspective or for the perspective of a fourth grader.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's the grade that the state of Alabama teaches. Alabama
Yes.
history is fourth grade. But it's a beautiful book. And for anybody, where can we find a copy? Do they have to come to Pebble Hill to get it? Or I'm sure they can probably order something online.
They can order it on Pebble Hill's website, the Carolyn Marsha Drawn Center for the Arts and Humanity. I don't exactly know what that web address is, but they can order it from there.
But it's beautiful, Laura. You did a great job.
It's definitely worth checking out and purchasing.
Thank you.
And I mean, genealogy is a gateway drug to history anyways. It is. Because once you're personally invested, it's like, oh, I want to know more.
Yes.
But speaking about genealogy in some ways too, so you are involved with the Daughters of the American Revolution. So I just wanted to ask you about that and just anything you'd like to tell us about that.
So the DAR is really special to me. I am a daughter of the Light Horse Harry Lee chapter here in Auburn and have been in several different offices. I've contributed my time. I'm actually currently the state librarian. So I have I'm on the state executive board, and it is such a wonderful organization. The DAR is founded on the pillars of historic preservation, education, and patriotism. It is a non-political organization that is focused on patriotism and community service. In fact, DAR Daughters last year nationally volunteered over 6 million community service hours.
Wow.
There are over 4,000 Alabama Daughters in around 70 Alabama chapters, and we have close to 200,000 members in the United States and nationally. The DAR is not what it used to be. You know, it's not what you see on Gilmore Girls. It's more a service organization these days, a lot of community service, a lot of public education and education for children about patriotism and our country. And right now we're focusing very heavily on Lafayette's return.
Okay.
So we're doing a lot for the 200th anniversary for
It's
Lafayette.
a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big anniversary.
You know, Laura, when we first introduced you, we had mentioned something about Olin Mills Studios and how you are kind of a current portraiture, but you're like a modern day Olin Mills, if you will, because you have created some beautiful illustrations of people. Like we could send you photos. I know I had you do that one for me and my girlfriends. How did you get involved in that type of creativity? And is there any type of art that you gravitate more toward? Because I know you also do website designs and all sorts of things.
I do. So my artwork ranges from laying out forms and brochures to historical panels to laying out books. I've done cover designs for authors. It kind of runs the gamut, but probably my favorite thing that I do is custom illustrations. And that actually started, the very first one I did was our Christmas card in 2017.
I love them.
Yeah.
And ever since then, every single year, except for like one, I think, I have done an illustrated Christmas card. And they get wilder and wilder as the years go on. This year, it's myself and my husband, our two daughters, my stepson, his wife, and their daughter, our granddaughter, on a sledding down the hill.
It was the best.
So it's been my favorite so far, but that is probably my number one favorite project every year when it's Christmas card season.
Right.
But that's really how custom illustrations started. I did them for myself and then decided after people asked me, hey, can you do these for me? And so I started selling custom illustrations, and I do custom illustrations for people. I've done professional portraits for custom illustrations just to have something different and quirky.
Right.
The illustration in the back of my book it's an illustration instead of an author portrait. I've done custom illustrations of people's homes and businesses. So it's really meaningful to me just to give somebody an option other than a photograph.
Yeah. And I remember during the pandemic, you sold stickers and stuff like that. It was really
Yes.
great. I loved it. I have some of those.
What is your
still.
favorite medium?
Well, my favorite medium to work in personally is probably watercolor. I just love it. It's easy and you make a mess and it's just fun. But I predominantly use my iPad when I'm working on projects, either for myself or for somebody else, because it cuts down a lot of the middle work.
Yes.
I can create something on my iPad and shoot it directly to my computer and put it in a layout instead of when I first started Amazing Alabama, I was working in a notebook with a pen and pencil and an eraser and a ruler. And it's great, but I draw really hard. I press really hard.
Right.
And so I not only had the pen marks, I had the indentions in the paper. And so when you scan that into the computer, I had to do a lot of Photoshop work on those to clean them up.
Well, Laura, we've enjoyed talking with you, but before you leave, we'd like to ask you a few more questions as part of our Before You Go segment, where we get to know you just a little bit better and hope you're willing to play along. So, first question.
Okay.
Cats or dogs, which do you prefer?
Oh, you know what? I think both have a place. I think currently I would probably be a cat person.
Yes.
I don't have...
Finally.
I don't have any pets at the moment, but cats are snuggly. In theory, cats are snuggly. I'm
She's looking at me because
Susan.
my cat is not snuggly.
But mine are.
My dog is always snuggly, so I'm a dog person.
You know, cats you can kind of leave at home if you're going out of town for the weekend, put plenty of food out and water. They can use the
care of
bathroom in a
themselves.
box. They can take care of themselves. However, we did just lose our little dog in about a year ago, and she was 16 years old. So she was my baby, and we have not made the leap to get another pet yet.
Yeah. Well, who is the person who influenced you in your life the most?
Oh my goodness, the person who's influenced me in my life the most. I don't really know the answer to that. That's okay. I don't really have a person that has specifically influenced me other than probably my dad. And it's more the business side of the influence than creative. My dad is a salesman. He's always been a salesman. He taught me the importance of a good handshake and the way that you your persona in front of people. I'm an extroverted introvert. I like to be around people, but when I'm around people and talking to a lot of people, I always have to go home and crash.
Yes.
My body has to reset itself.
We can relate.
And so my dad has always been really important in how I portray myself.
That's great. That's awesome.
What is your favorite emoji?
Oh, my favorite emoji right now is probably the thumbs up because I just use it all the time.
I heard kids today don't like that, and they say it's a negative thing. So what is that all about? I have no idea.
I don't know about that, but when I'm typing OK to my oldest daughter, I can't just type K or the letters OK. I have to spell it out.
Right.
She said if I don't spell it out, it's rude.
I agree.
There's a whole dynamic behind emojis and abbreviations that I'm just far beyond understanding.
So, who are you listening to today?
Who am I
what's on
listening
your
to
radio?
today? Music-wise, well, honestly, my favorite is always Elton John and Billy Joel.
Well, we want to thank our guest, Laura Murray, for joining us today. And we want to thank you, our listeners and viewers, for joining us for this edition of Coffee and History, a conversation with Alabama Heritage. You can find our podcast on our website at alabamaheritage.com, as well as on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our YouTube channel, where we also post extended versions with no edits whatsoever. I'm not sure why we do that. But next time we will see you. For now, I think I need a little bit more coffee. So thanks everybody for joining us. Bye. Bye. Coffee and History, a conversation with Alabama Heritage, is brought to you by the good folks at Wind Creek Hospitality and the Poarch